Hi there BookTube, it's Eleanor here, and today I'm doing my weekly wrap up of what I've read and what I'm going to read next week. I had a brilliant reading week this week. I read 6 books, and I think the reason for this is I had a bit more time and I've been very effective with my reading time, but also because I've read a lot of contemporary books. I think all buying 2 books this week were contemporary, YA contemporary books, and I just seem to be able to fly through these. They're very easy reading, they're very fast paced, and they're very, very addictive. You want to know what's happening, you want to get to the end of the story. Anyway, you'll find out what those ones are very soon. In fact, 2 of them you will have already heard about because I've already put a review up. So here's what I read this week. First, I read Half Bad by Sally Green. This book's about Nathan. He's half White Witch and half Black Witch, and he lives in a world where the White Witches perceive themselves as the good witches and they perceive Black Witches as bad. And it's about him being persecuted even though, you know, he's a child. It's about how he's treated, and also it shows you how people do things that are cruel in the name of what they think is good, and I thought that was a really interesting concept. You see a lot of these things in religion and in society in other ways, people doing things which they think are right and they think they are the good guys, and what they're doing is cruel. So I really enjoyed that part of it. However, I really thought this book started strong, but it did get a bit slow towards the middle and the end, so I ended up giving this book 3 stars. The next 2 books I read I'm not going to talk too much about because I have done a massive gushy video review of them both this week, but they were The Sky is Everywhere and I'll Give You the Sun by Jandy Nelson, and I gave both of these 5 stars and I loved them both. The Sky is Everywhere is about a girl who's dealing with the loss of her sister, and it's about her dealing with this, and it's about her moving on and learning to be herself. And I'll Give You the Sun is about twins, and it's about an event that causes them not to really be speaking. It's about their family life, it's about art. Both of these books were brilliant. The Sky is Everywhere made me bawl like a baby. I'll Give You the Sun made me have tears in my eyes at times. I just really enjoyed these. So I'll just read them, they're really good. The next book I read this week was a buddy read with Sam from Cold Tea and Crumbs, and we both wanted to read Everneath by Brodie Ashton. This is a paranormal book. It's a retelling, I believe, of the Persephone myth. Unfortunately for me, this one just felt a bit flat. I didn't feel any connection with the characters, and I totally wasn't bothered about the romance, which with books like this is probably the main selling point. It's about Nikki, and she's returned from the underworld where she's gone willingly because of something that's happened, and it's about her 6 months that she's allowed back on Earth before she has to go back to the underworld, and there's 2 boys involved and mythology, and the idea was good. I just didn't click with it, so I only gave this one 2 stars. The next book I read was Me and Mr. J by Rachel McIntyre, and I have a review coming up of this in the next week, so I'm not going to talk too much about it. This book is written as a diary, and it's a story about bullying and about a student-teacher relationship, and I really enjoyed it, and I thought it was very well written. I'm not going to say any more than that because, as I say, my review is going to be going up next week, but needless to say, I really enjoyed it and I gave it 4 stars. And then the final book I read this week was a buddy read with Mandy at Oh It's Mandy, and it's Girl Online by Zoe Sugg. I read this book in a day. It's a really good contemporary romance, a YA contemporary romance, and I find it difficult because I know there's been a lot of emotions and feelings about the whole Zoe Sugg and the ghostwriting and everything. Personally, I've watched Zoella a couple of times, but I'm in sort of in a camp of my own that I really don't care who's written a book as long as it's good. I mean, I wouldn't have picked it up probably had I not heard about it, but I heard about it on BookTube, so it could have been written by anyone really. And I'm pleased I picked it up. I thought it was your very typical contemporary romance story. There wasn't anything new, anything revolutionary. It's not going to win any awards for, literary revolutionary writing, but it did what it says on the tin for a YA contemporary romance. It had a really good plot, it had a really good romance, it was a really good story, enough for me to read it in a day. The book itself is beautifully designed, and it's just a pleasure to read. It's a really beautiful, beautifully designed book, hardback at the moment. The story is about Penny, and she writes a blog, and she writes this blog as a release, as a way of getting things out. She's a teenager, she's struggling with different things in her life. She's had a situation that's caused her to suffer from some anxiety panic attacks, and she uses the blog as a way to sort of talk about it. And it's just about her growing, learning to be herself, falling in love for the first time, the traps of being online and having a blog, especially if you're anonymous. And yeah, it was just a really, really fun read, and if that's what you're looking for, then I definitely recommend this, and I gave it 4 stars. That was the ridiculous amount of books I read this week, and as I say, I put it down to a lot of them being YA contemporary books. I seem to be able to read those type of books very quickly. The stories pull me through and I can read them in a day, which is what happened with a lot of these. They're also really easy to dip in and out of. If my daughter's having her dinner, I can sit and read while she's eating her dinner, and not worry that I'm going to lose the plot or lose where I am. I don't have to sit down for a long period of time like I do with some books and really be able to focus. So I think that's why I get through them quite quickly. Now on to what I'm looking to read next week. I want to read a book called The Little Paris Bookshop, which I got from NetGalley. It sounds like a really brilliant book. I think, again, this is going to be sort of a contemporary romance. It's an adult story, it's adult fiction, but it's about books, and I love me some books about books. I'm also starting a buddy read with Stephanie from Time to Read. We're going to be reading State of Wonder by Anne Patchett. And then I'm kind of going to see how I feel for the rest of the week. State of Wonder, I think, is going to be a more concentrated read, so it may be that I go back to some of the other sort of YA books on my list. I don't know. But those are the 2 that I'm definitely reading this week, State of Wonder and The Little Paris Bookshop. What are you reading? What have you read? Have you read any of the books that I talked about? What were your thoughts and feelings on them? And I look forward to hearing your thoughts. Okay, bye for now, BookTube.